We've been told a lie, a dogma, an ideology, which is Darwinism. For 150 years, we've been told that this is true, but it is not actually. So if you look at the background of this, we'll discover interesting things. So instead of accepting what we are forced to believe, let's look at what Darwinism says. A sensible person, when he hears about Darwinism and when he looks at the scientific evidence, he will clearly see that Darwinism is not supported by science at all. But for the last 150 years, people were said things over TV, over radio, newspapers and everything. They were forced to believe that Darwinism is right, and that actually led to communism, because communism is based on Darwinism, and communism leads to violence. People need the minds of people should be purged from that, because it brings a lots of damage, it brings lots of harm. Those shooting sprees in the schools, for example, why does a kid take a gun and shoot other people? Why? Because he believes in natural selection, he believes in the survival of the fittest, and goes on a killing spree. So we have to see the danger there. We have to teach children scientific evidence. We shouldn't teach them dogma. Yes, there is a theory called theory of evolution, but it is unscientific. There is no scientific proof that backs it. When we look at the fossils, when we look at the genetics, when we look at the biology, all these things lead to us one conclusion, that God created everything out of nothingness, and the genes haven't evolved at all, the species haven't evolved at all, the life hasn't emerged coincidentally. I would like to remind you something, because yesterday there was a rerun of the evolution program on Habertürk. Heckel, made some imaginary drawings, and he actually admitted himself that they had no scientific bearing. Let's see the picture first. This is what he drew. This is what he drew, sorry. The top drawings, they belong to Heckel, and he drew the fetus of these different creatures, and he made them look like similar to each other, but actually at the bottom you can see the original, the real fetus of those creatures. They are very different from each other. So when Heckel drew these things, of course Darwin jumped on this immediately, because he took this as an opportunity. But then Heckel admitted that it wasn't right what he did, because they were imaginary. He says, after I admitted what I did, I should feel embarrassed, I should feel ashamed, but I'm not feeling very embarrassed, because there are so many other famous biologists that are telling similar lies. So he says that it is not ordinary people that says wrong things. He says it is the biologists or the observers that say different things, that say the wrong things, that tell lies just like me. That's why I don't feel ashamed. That's what he says, Heckel says. But his drawings are still shown as a proof to the theory of evolution. Actually, universities use these fake drawings by Heckel. It is a shame, it is shocking that the universities still use this as a proof to the evolution, when Heckel himself confessed that it was a lie. He was cheating people, he was lying. And he says, what can I do? Everyone is doing that. But we have to see the danger here. Stephen Jay Gould, He said, I was aware of the fact that this wasn't true, this was a lie, but we didn't have any evidence to use as a support for Darwinism. So I said that this was right, so I told this to everyone, and that was his confession. All these confessions show us one more time that theory of evolution has no scientific bearing. These fake drawings by Heckel are still taught at schools in Turkey, in Azerbaijan, in many countries at schools. So it is important to see how Darwinism has no scientific support, has no scientific basis. This is actually engineering the subconsciousness of people. During that program in Habertürk, they said something very interesting. They are trying to target the subconsciousness of the people. For example, he said that I wish people read The Origin of Species by Charles Darwin so they would understand. So many people will think that if I read the book of Charles Darwin, then I would see. So I must be ignorant. If I read his book, then I will believe in evolution. So that's just leading people into believing that Darwinism is right. But actually, I read The Origin of Species by Darwin. All of us have read it, probably. It has no scientific proof. It has no scientific basis. Today, maybe a 7th grade student will know much more than what Darwin knew when he really wrote his book. Because think about the microscopes that the students use at schools today, and think about what Darwin had when he was writing that book. They didn't even see what the cell really looked like. He thought that it was just a water-filled bubble. He wasn't a biologist. He was just an adventurer. I read a lot of books about Darwin. So I would like to read another confession by Darwin. He said, if the species really evolved from other species, then why can't we see numerous transitional form fossils? Some biologists say that why you should know that there can't be a half fish, half bird. Yes, there can't, but Darwin says that we have to find them. According to Darwin, that's exactly what we have to find if evolution really happened. He says, why does everything look very neat? Maybe the lack of these transitional forms will be the biggest blow to my theory. So the poor man, he admitted himself. And Darwin wrote a letter to his friend in 1960s, and he said that thinking about the eye made him have suspicions about his own theory, because the eye is such a complex structure, we wouldn't be able to explain all of it during our program. Darwin also said that looking at a peacock makes me sick, because peacock is a miracle. It's an amazing, breathtaking art. It could never be the result of the coincidences, just like everything else in the nature. And also, let's think about what scientific disciplines were lacking during the time of Darwin. There was no genetics, there was no electron microscopes, there was no paleontology. For example, he thought that variation and natural selection were proofs for theory of evolution. For example, he put birds side by side, going from small to the bigger, and he thought that they evolved from each other. So he was just telling a fairy tale, because the science level was very low. There was no one knew about DNA, mitochondria, Golgi apparatus, nothing. And he wasn't a biologist too. But they think that he was just an adventurer. He just had fun, he just went to places, he just wanted to see around. They are trying to spread this theory, but using lies, using deception methods.